two, I'm going to get started. I just wanted to thank everyone for giving a topic that we are seeing throughout the higher education sector. My name is Tyrone. I'm the sales manager at C-STEM. Today, we're going to be talking about device visibility and security in higher education. We are fortunate enough to be joined by our partner, Armis, and the person that's going to be presenting that to you today is one of their technical experts, Anthony Smyth. Just a quick agenda for the webinar, just a few introductions, which we've done. We'll dive then straight into where Anthony will give us visibility of the product, go through a demo, show you some interesting things that it can do that's relevant to your sector. And then after that, we will cover off why working with C-STEM in partnership with Armis is so important, the value that it brings to you, but also if you were to pursue this product, how the return on investment could be quite imminent. And then any questions at the end, please drop them in a chat. If you want to unmute yourself and ask it directly, you can also do that as well. But we'll make sure that we cover off all the questions at the end. And if you want to, like I said, unmute yourself, please do. So before I hand over to Anthony, Armis is one of our trusted partners and vendors. With Armis, they are one of the smart services on our toolkits, which I will get to later in the webinar. We will be concentrating purely on agentless device security. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Anthony to do his introduction and to get started with a demo.
Thank you very much, Tyrone. Let me put my screen share up. Just a quick bit of housekeeping from Tyrone. You should be looking at a Google window with an inventory view.
Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you. So I'm going to go straight in and start with showing you Armis data. So what does data look like? I will answer some questions about where do we get this from, how do we deploy in the network as well. I'll switch over to that shortly and then come back and go through the data in more depth. Just wanted to give you an, kind of, I guess, pique your interest with an initial view on what does the data look like and really what does Armis do. So Armis provides unified asset discovery, visibility, and security. And we do that without you having to deploy an agent. We do that automatically and we do that continuously. And we are creating this data by sniffing network traffic. So to answer the question about the basic question of, well, how do we do this? And I'll go into that in more detail, but that is the data, the base level data that we're using is sniffing network traffic and then analyzing that and using that to continually produce information such as you're seeing on the screen here. And so I will go through different components and features within Armis, but here we're looking at an inventory view. So we can see here, and this is deliberately designed to be consumable, easy to use, so carefully thought out UI. Each of the device types is grouped and you can see immediately what they are. It's possible to start filtering this view down by particular type. I've set this to all, but we could just go show me the displays, the TVs in my organization, show me the computers, different types of computers, whether that's physical or virtual, show me building automation. So certainly in large organizations such as HE, you're going to have building automation, obviously for heating, but also for opening and closing doors. You'll have research components or research labs, particularly if you're doing medical or industrial types of research. You will have heavy equipment that your organization will be managing, and there will be building management and automations as part of that. Each of these different icons representing the group of technologies has a search associated with it. So for example, if I want to show the laptops, I click on this here and that will automatically create the search for me. And that takes me into this more typical Armis view, where we can start to see the data in a little bit more detail, and I can drill in further and go and have a look at these individual devices. So I could go into this device, for example, and we can see that it's a Apple MacBook. What version of Mac OS is it running? We can see the sources where we've got the data from. So this would be network traffic inspection. This is from a Jamf agent, which is a type of MDM for MacBooks, and CrowdStrike, EDR in this choice, and a little bit of a deeper analysis from the Armis Mac Smart Scanner. We can see the IP address, the MAC address. We've associated some tags, site, so what network site and what network device last saw it. When did Armis first and last see the device? So I'm going to go and talk a little bit about how we deploy, and then I'll come back and go through that data in a little bit more detail. So where do we get the data from? How does Armis get this data? This is a very simple logical diagram. No one's network is really this simple in reality, but this just allows us to help you understand the Armis components and where we logically fit into any network. So we have a collector, and a collector is a device which will plug into your network core, and then potentially would be more than one collector, and this can be physical or virtual. The reason we offer both is, although there are the obvious cost savings that are well understood with virtual, what we found is many organizations prefer a simple, small physical device. It's easier for them to manage rather than having to have their VMware environment well run and well organized. That's something that we're seeing. For us, it doesn't matter. It's the same code running on a collector as is running virtually. We offer you both options to whatever suits you. So the collector itself will then plug into the core network, and that we want to see north, south, east, west traffic, so we can see as much traffic as possible from all of the devices. We only need as little as a DHCP request to identify what a device is. Of course, we're not going to be able to say what a device is doing if that's all we see. We would want more traffic, such as DNS requests. Where is it going to? What is it connecting to? We also would like to plug into the wireless LAN controller represented here, so we can query the access points and ask, what are those access points seeing in their airspace? The collector itself will then create metadata. So we're not sending that network traffic up to the Armis cloud for deeper analysis. We're doing metadata building here locally on site. We run about 8,000 rules, and those rules are going to create an initial data set, base data set, that the cloud can then use for deeper analysis. So it will be things like IP address, MAC address, user agent string. Where is a device connecting from and to, behaviors, intensity, network behaviors. We then send that, and the ratio of data in to out is about 10,000 in to 1 out. We then send that data up to the Armis cloud for deeper analysis to understand what device it is and to have a look at any potential risks of that device. We're looking, I said, unified asset discovery and visibility. So we're looking to be a single source of truth where we can correlate multiple data sources. So you will have siloed information in BYOD devices, and we're seeing Microsoft Intune gaining a lot of traction in medical and in higher education. So we can ingest Intune information, and that we would use to connect directly from the cloud via API. So we don't need a collector for that, and that will provide additional attribute information. The same for managed devices. So when we think about the data we just looked at, so we've got CrowdStrike information here, for example, that is coming straight in via an API, cloud to cloud connection to CrowdStrike SaaS. For cloud and virtual assets, we can also connect again directly to AWS, GCP, and Azure and pull out workload information. So that will be inventory information about what workloads are in the are you running in the cloud. And then the harder stuff, the unmanaged devices, IoT assets, OT, if you're doing industrial research, medical, if you're doing medical research in higher education. These are the types of devices that cannot take an agent. You can't put CrowdStrike or any of those types of agent on them. They will potentially be running either old OSs, maybe old versions of Windows, or different versions of Android or Linux. They are not built for security. They're built to do the single purpose that they're built for. Security is rarely well thought out, or perhaps an attempt at an afterfit. They're prone to vulnerabilities. They're prone to falling over if you scan them. They're difficult to manage. They're risky. You're probably going to have them on separate, segregated HE networks. This is where Armis, passively listening to the network traffic and being able to match that device's basic physical information, such as the OUI part of the MAC address, to behavior, allows us to tell you what the device is. And then often network devices, these are devices which your access points are seeing in the airspace. They're not connected to your network, but they're physically there, and they may present some kind of risk. You certainly would want to know about them. We can also tell you that they're there and what they are from their SSID requests. So we talked about API connections, some additional technologies we can connect to as well to provide additional attribute information. We've talked about data sources, touched on data attributes, the type of data we're taking and using to build out the classification and identification. So we run that data through our profiling engine in the cloud. And this is where the size really matters of the device knowledge base. So the Armis device knowledge base is a crowdsourced device behavior catalog. So, and then the benefit of crowdsourcing is if a university A, for example, has a set of new devices, then and they're new to us, and our R&D team do some basic, there will be some machine learning to do some basic analysis of what the device is, and then potentially our R&D team behind that doing some deeper profile building of what the device is, and then everybody else benefits from that. And there are always going to be new devices being developed or old devices no one's ever seen connecting in. That shared knowledge base is the most efficient way to provide accurate device identification. So we're tracking over 1 billion devices now, and that's always growing as we bring in new customers. 12 million device profiles. Those are the, it's a Samsung TV, but what exactly is it? What particular model is it, for example? So let me go and final point. Certainly from an HE point of view, I know from conversations I've had with universities, you will have research faculties in multiple disciplines. So it will matter what protocols we can understand off the IP network around industrial research, automation and production, around medical research, electrical, building management. We can send you this list. This allows us to not specialize in one of the 3 areas of corporate IT, industrial or medical, but in all 3 of them. And we have dedicated teams to all 3 of those device disciplines. So let's go back. Now that we've understood where the data comes from, how we analyze it, and how we're building out the picture, let's go back and have a look at this device. So we were looking at this laptop. We've talked about sources, and we can see here some examples of sources, although we can ingest many others. We can see more detailed information about this device. We already know its name, IP address. Because we're taking CrowdStrike information, we've got the CID for CrowdStrike. We know what type it is. We can see what access switch it's connected to. By the way, if I wanted to just do a match on match this to similar devices, I could simply click on these tabs here, which makes everything in this UI is designed to make searching and finding things quick and easy. Some status, again, when we're bringing in additional attribute information, this allows us to combine all of the data sources in your environment to tell a full story in one place. We can have a look at, because we're bringing in network traffic, and MAC address and network activities are the lowest unit of information that we build the story from. We can see, okay, what has this device actually been doing on the network? We can see connecting to the core switch, the catalyst. We can see DNS requests of where is the device attempting to connect to. And that allows us to build out information such as what is it doing on the network. So we can see what network services is the device connecting to. We have some high-level dashboard information as well about traffic. Where is the traffic being sent to? What services are we connecting to? The IP-based ones are going to be internal. If they're external services, then we will look up the name of that service and provide that. If we look at traffic, we can see traffic based by port, name, description, and volume. So total traffic, inbound and outbound. We can see where relevant vulnerabilities. Now, this is passive identification of vulnerabilities. This is hard to do, and we've put a lot of effort into making sure that this is relevant and not too noisy. It's not the same as active. If you have an active scanner, then active scanning is always going to knock on the door effectively of the device, check the registry, and understand what exact vulnerabilities are potentially on that device. Whereas we're saying we're going to do this passively, and this is most useful for those devices which are here, unmanaged and IoT assets, okay? The devices which are hard to, you can't scan, it's risky, you're not going to have an agent on. We do this by understanding the hardware, the software, and the application. So we can see what network applications are running on these devices because they're going to be sending network traffic, and we're scanning network traffic. When we have this amount of information, it allows us to ask some interesting questions. I could either ask it per device or of the whole estate. So here I've just typed in quite a blunt search and said, right, show me applications running in this data set. So we see 74, and we can see we've grouped the devices where we're seeing those applications run, and we can see the version number as well. So we can see we're going to have multiple versions, of course, things like Chrome. Now that's a blunt search. Let's say that I wanted to do something a little bit smarter. So I'm going to start with devices. So that's a high-level entity for Armis. I'm going to link that to a couple of other high-level entities, starting with the OS, which in this case I'm going to search for Windows. I'm going to also link this search to an application. In this case, it's going to be my EDR tool of choice, which in this data is CrowdStrike. So now I'm asking Armis to tell me all the Windows devices which are running my CrowdStrike, my endpoint management. So that is of some use, but really what's more useful is to understand the gap. So if I negate that, so show me the Windows devices not running CrowdStrike, we can see here, we pull back a big search. And we can then, I can then use that to understand, I could build a dashboard around this as well and run that dashboard continually. So I'm always aware, and there could be very good reason for many of these devices, you know, such as this medical device here, not being able to run CrowdStrike. But certainly if they're laptops or IT devices, I'd want to know about that. So if we go in here, I talked about dashboards. We've looked at the inventory side, but let's talk about continual reporting, building use cases around monitoring, because we do not expect any Armis user to go through this manually like I'm doing. I'm merely going through this to demonstrate the capability. But of course, everything's built automatically. Dashboards can be defined and left to run on a big screen, and you can build policy and alerts. So here we see some KPI information, so number of devices, what Armis is deeming some risks, some threat activities. I can generate my own alerts, and I can send these via syslog into a SIM of choice if you're running Splunk or Greylog or some other SIM, or even if you've outsourced that. You can break this data down by site. So here it's geography level, but your country level, but you could do it by your own higher education group level, and then break that out further, subdivide it by site, for example. Boundaries, these are network boundaries. So a human readable name, which will match to particular boundaries within the network, typically IP ranges, device types, VLANs. And of course, you can break the data down by time. So asset management. So we've got a number of dashboards we've built here just to demonstrate. So here we're looking at devices based on the source of the data. So CrowdStrike, SCCM, vCenter. And if we go in and give you an example of some, we can see here, these are integrations and these are where the data is coming from. But I can also pull data in from hundreds of different integrations. So we have these ready to go. If we had the client and the API information for Intune, we'd be able to pull in Intune information. As we scroll down, we can see a large list of potential integrations that Armis supports. As we scroll down, we can see some other examples of asset-based dashboards, and these can be built and customized, and C-STEM experts in this would work with you, understand your use cases, and help you build out the relevant searches and dashboards to suit your needs. CrowdStrike. So these are dashboards specifically based on, in this case, CrowdStrike, because that's what we're pulling in for this data, but it could be some other endpoint that's relevant to your organization. So we can see here, CrowdStrike devices broken down by the relevant OS, computers, for example, without CrowdStrike. So we did that search earlier where I just pulled out Windows devices not running CrowdStrike, but here we've got a pre-built dashlet, which is showing you the devices and the breakdown. And I can click on this and start pulling that automatically. Medical devices, potentially relevant in HE environments where if you're focused or faculty focused on developing and building medical devices, it's certainly relevant in the medical environment, and some typical IT operations dashboards here as well. So you'll notice that we've got some alerts shown here. So these we can alert on anything that we can see in the network. So we can build these alerts are built out of policy. So we go in here, we can see number of policies. We are always adding and building these policies for you, so you don't need to do that work. Of course, there will be some specific policies relevant to the context in your environment that you will want to build out yourself as well. So let's go for an easy one here. So because we identify unencrypted SMB v1 traffic as a potential risk factor, which we can see here, then we've got a very simple rule that is going, in this case, is going to send an alert. But you have different options. You don't have to send an alert. You could tag the device. Enforce or block means that Armis is capable of orchestrating similar to a SOAR response. Of course, Armis would require access to the relevant switch to do that. Or you could push something to ServiceNow is becoming a very popular ticketing tool in every environment. So you could send tickets to ServiceNow, for example. So I've taken you through fairly quickly the way Armis works and where we get the data from. I've also taken you through the feature set ranging from that unified asset discovery and visibility through to the deeper visibility we give on what the device is doing, and then what you can do with that. So whether that's looking at vulnerabilities, building policy, and raising alerts. So I'm going to conclude the demo there. I will take any relevant technical questions now and hand over to Tyrone to talk about C-STEM services.
Thank you, Anthony. That was great. Obviously, I think it's given everyone a better insight as to what you get from Armis. The big thing that we've seen in the conversations we've been having recently is those dashlets. Obviously, people want to have visibility of what's in their network, but also simplified visibility, because a lot of the organizations we've spoken to, what they're doing is they obviously keeping track on this in spreadsheets, and it's also sat across different departments. So to get that visibility across those departments is sometimes tricky or time consuming. Armis has obviously been a great tool to kind of minimize the time, give you better insight and better visibility. So before we go ahead with, why working with C-STEM in partnership with Armis, is there any questions? If people want to pop it in the chat, drop off mute to ask, now is the time. Perfect. If any questions come up throughout the next part of the presentation, we do have a bit of a Q&A at the end. So you've still got time. Anything that comes up, please pop it in the chat, come off mute. We want to make this as interactive as we can. So if you can see my screen about the landscape, Anthony, that'd be great, and I'll proceed.
I can see the landscape. Absolutely.
Brilliant. So in the beginning, I spoke about C-STEM, and C-STEM stands for Systems Plus Techniques equals Effective Management. And what that means is we've kind of identified with organizations across all the sectors is everyone is on a digital transformation journey. Now, certain organizations are more mature than others, but they've got a same common theme that they want to achieve. And that is ensuring that they modernize the architecture, reduce risks, and improve user experience. The big thing with Armis is obviously for the students is understanding, and the full-time employees is who's on your network, should they be in that area, so that you guys can start locking them down. What we've seen is completely putting in full security, locking everything down to a point. We minimize that security, we minimize that visibility and user experience for the students, but also for the full-time employees. So having that control, being able to make those decisions has helped organizations on their digital transformation journey. And what our aims at C-STEM, they are quite simple. All we want to do is improve your efficiency and productivity and help you guys reduce time and effort and costs. As we know, obviously in the HE sector, public money, we want to make sure that you guys are in a position where the investments you are making are going to be valuable, give you return on investment, but also ensuring you do not make any redundant investments. And how do we work? So our key focus is around ensuring that we help you bridge the gap. All our services, all our toolkits are 100% complementary. And what we look to do is we try and identify how effective you currently are, and we help you bridge that gap to becoming more towards your target effectiveness. And we do that by our smart services. Our approach, everything that we do, what we look to do in our first engagements is understand your challenges, where you are on your journey, and from there we move you straight away to an evidence-based position. We'll diagnose before we subscribe, and everything that we do along this journey, we're ensuring that we're not conflicting with any existing technology you guys have in place at the moment. We're ensuring that you guys have got everything documented. Everything that you have along this journey will ensure that when you do have certain conversations across the boards or stakeholders, everything has been evidenced, everything is kind of being required to fit, and you'll be able to share this information with everyone at the certain stages on our journey, which I'll get onto. As I said, our process in C-STEM is a consultative approach. What we look to do is we put into a position. Now, some of the organization that's joined us today, they've never heard of C-STEM, and this is their first introduction into C-STEM, but also to our smart services and a product like Armis. So today we've done the C-STEM introduction and we've done the solution introduction. If we want to have those further conversations, what we'll do is we'll kind of set up a meeting, identify those challenges and pain points, and move you along the journey. Some of the other organizations, we've already had those conversations. They're in a position now where they are actually looking at doing proof of value exercises. We're helping them define success criteria so that we can do a bit of a gap analysis for them and push them forwards to help build business cases and put a formal proposal together for them so that they can go and have those conversations with their boards. So everything that we do is consultative and ensuring that you guys are along the way, you can evidence the fit, we can ensure it's going to overcome your challenges, but also once you do kind of click the green button, you'll get return on investment straight away. And that concludes a bit about C-STEM. I hope you guys have enjoyed today. As I said, please pop any questions into the chat. I can see some are coming through now. So I can see, Anthony, you've answered one of the questions in the chat already.
Yes, I have. Yeah. So Suzanne asked whether we can send alerts to over and above ServiceNow, and the short answer is, well, anywhere. But I've just outlined the methods that we use to get to the anywhere. So to do that, So we can raise tickets via email, and all ticketing or service desk tools can ingest email, otherwise they're not really a service desk tool. So that means anyone. We can send data anywhere that we have the relevant API integration with, and ServiceNow is one of the ones we have API integration. We can send alerts to any SIM via syslog, because they all support syslog or they're not a SIM. And we can also, we have integrations with Splunk and with Exabeam via API. We've written apps, and so have they, and they're published in the Splunk App Store, so a TA, technical add-on. And we're expanding all the time as we have new customer requests for particular types of integration. So hopefully that is a good answer for Suzanne.
Brilliant. If there's any kind of further questions to add to that, or if things kind of jumped out and you'd want to ask now, please do pop them into the chat. But yeah, thank you, Suzanne, for interacting and asking those questions. I'll give it another minute, just in case, someone gets a light bulb moment and wants to get a question out there they want to get answered before they jump off the webinar today.
So while we're thinking, one point from me, that I've been working in cybersecurity for more than 20 years. And there have been various frameworks in existence, certainly from NIST and NIS in Europe they've been maturing, certainly the last 10 years. And yet we've all not been able to adhere to the first principle of know what you have. And you look at the pillar of NIST, of CIS, it's 18 now, controls, all of them start with a foundation of know what you have, hardware and software. And yet we live in a world now where that's really hard to do. 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, it was laptops and beige desktops and asset tickets, and you could probably get a spreadsheet out of procurement and have a good amount of your IT infrastructure covered in terms of what you have. You can't do that anymore. That's just not possible. And yet, by not being able to meet that first most basic principle of all of those cybersecurity frameworks, we're leaving a massive gap, and that is being exploited. And we'll continue to see it exploited more and more. And you're seeing those stories in the press, whether it's water systems in Florida with TeamViewer access to control terminals. And their answer to that was, oh, well, someone there happened to see the screen. I don't really feel that fills me with confidence about the cybersecurity processes at that water plant, especially as the attacker was trying to change the chemical makeup of that water, to use an example from last year. But there's others. There's a Spanish brewery, and we're going to see more and more of this. So there's a point to raise as much as anything. And if anyone does have any questions or observations about their own deployment of frameworks, so I'm going above the technology and starting with cybersecurity governance and thinking about how you deploy strategically, and then from there you then pick the tools that match that cybersecurity requirement. So that's just a thought from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. And just to add to that, before we head off today, we've been speaking to a local university, and the key thing to them was, obviously there's campuses on site. Obviously students are bringing multiple devices, connecting them to networks. As we know, attackers nowadays, they're not going to come into your common areas. And a lot of the higher education organizations is what we're starting to see is there's a lot of blind spots. So whether it's a student's Xbox, a TV, these are all kind of areas that we aren't focused on because we've got our typical devices that we are monitoring. Yet those attackers are choosing to come through the blind spots, come into your network, identify something that you believe is innocent, and then kind of access your data that way. So that is kind of something that we've seen in conversations we've been having. And Armis, what it does is it puts you in a position where you can identify those blind spots. You can monitor behavior, and it will, as we've seen in the demo today, it will also notify you and alert you if that behavior is suspicious. So If you found today interesting and it was very useful, you know, please, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to get some feedback. Our team will be in contact with you. But if you've got time today, please go visit our website, have a look at some of the information we've got on there, follow us on LinkedIn. And as you can see there, we are supporting a charity called Bullies Out. We'll be abseiling on the 4th of December down the Transporter Bridge to raise some money for them. And what Bullies Out does is actually goes into schools and organizations to help stamp out bullying. So if you've got time, have a look at their website. But from myself and Anthony, we just wanted to thank you for your time today. And we look forward to hearing from you guys and speaking to you in the near future. Thank you very much.